Yes, yes, yes. Oh, you know what that sound means. It's time for the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese. Oh, it's time for another In the News special.
In the news!
And as always, we're caffeinated and we're medicated, but let's get right into it. Oh, as always, the biggest story in Formula One, the Red Bull madness continues. It completely continues. The FIA is now involved since the woman involved in the complaint in Red Bull has now filed a complaint with the FIA, with a possible FIA investigation following. And you know that'll want to be done in a swift and quick manner, since they want to be talking about what's on the track, not what's off the track. And also Ford, not happy with how Red Bull has handled things, since they're going to be partnering Red Bull in 26 with the new engine regulations.
Ford is not happy.
They are not happy with the way this has been handled. And they sent a strongly worded letter to Red Bull. They have also asked for information into this matter, and Red Bull has pretty much given them diddly squat. So that has pretty much pissed Ford off as well. So that's a pretty big snazfoo, adding to the additional madness of this guy said this guy said that. Is Red Bull going to fall apart? That's the question. I send to you, sir.
Did you just say snazfoo as you join us here in the St. Patty's Day special? Maybe you were celebrating St. Patrick's Day where you are with either some green beer or some green something else. Hope everyone's having an amazing day around the world, tuning in on this week off, a rare week off, especially in the springtime for the 2024 season. So, yeah, just like Margaritaville, looks like Christian Horner is, lost his shaker of salt out there and looking for a woman to blame, but he knows it's his own damn fault. So as we head deeper here into the 2024 season, the black cloud hangs over Red Bull, hangs over Ford now, a future partner for 2026. Does the partnership with Ford, if that dissolves, how does that affect the future of Red Bull? I think 2024 season, anything can happen with the interior of this team, of the back end of this team, of the C-suite of this team. I don't think that's going to stop Red Bull from winning this year. It might cause some drama next year, but if you're really honest, let's be really honest, 2026 is really what we're looking at right now, and this Ford situation could really affect that. How does that affect 2026? Should we be concerned about 2026? And is this correctable and still keeping Christian Horner?
Is it probably going to keep Christian Horner? Probably not. That's probably not going to work out. Not if, because Ford's going to bring money, and a whole lot of money, especially in the development of the brand new power plant. So Red Bull definitely doesn't want to lose that. They don't, yes, they make their own engines right now, but that's a very, very, very large investment into changing the engine plant. That's where Mercedes, how Mercedes got on the run they did, is that they basically decided we're going to be mid to back of the pack for a couple years, and we're going to devote everything to develop the engine or the power plant, and that's how they went on to dominate. 8 constructors in a row, since they had the most power and they had a great car. So, but the amount of money that you have to invest for a power plant to develop it is massive, and that's a big chunk of money.
Let's be real. Ford wants to sell giant pickup trucks in Europe
absolutely.
Badly. It has not caught on. If you've ever been to Europe, or those listening from Europe, big giant trucks are not a thing out there in Europe. I'm sure for many of you listening, you probably don't want it to be a thing. Although, being right here in lower Manhattan and seeing big pickup trucks somehow making it through down through Tribeca, down the cobblestone streets down there. I'm assuming they'll fit down the streets in Europe. But Ford really wants to open that market really
Ford
terribly
just
bad.
wants to sell cars more in Europe than they do right now.
Yeah, but they make a
wanna sell
ton of
cars.
upside on their pickup trucks. That's where they make all their money. That's their bread and butter.
Well, sure.
And they want to sell them because the U.S. market is becoming saturated with trucks, and they need to bring them overseas. So this is a necessity for Ford. So Ford may talk tough now, but I think in the end the dollars are going to move the needle for the company. And Ford is not a company that hasn't dipped their toe into controversy before. This is not that kind of show, so we're not going to go there. But seriously, it's that's what it's all about. It's all about the money. And if Ford wants to push their product deeper into Europe, maybe not the best way, but the best way forward they feel is through Formula One, and maybe it is the best way. And that's what they've determined is one of the better ways to get through. So I don't think they're going to dissolve this so easily. At the same time, if
The situation continues to get worse and worse and worse, I mean, it's definitely a possibility because you don't want, Ford doesn't want that look to be associated with their organization. Let's be honest. Red Bull's actually in battle with itself with what's going on. The part of the company, what's it, RHB or something like that? Mm-hmm. That half of the company kind of wants Horner gone. And then the Thai side, the majority ownership, wants Horner to stay. So the company's at war with itself right now.
And this is what
But you
happens
wanna
when
be
you
an
hire
organization-
someone in a dual role. This is what happens when you hire someone in a massive dual role. Your team principal and CEO. So now you have nobody that can slide into either of those roles. So think about it at your job or where you work, and that person you really want to get rid of. And the company's like, why are you keeping this person? Like, everyone has someone at their office, at their job. Why are you keeping this person? And the same thing is applied here, except now you're talking about the CEO of the company, which I'm sure we've all said the same thing about maybe our CEOs or bosses or, team principals or whatever you're at. How is this person keeping their job? And serving in two roles and having massive success, pretty consistent success over the last 15 seasons. So it's such a weird conundrum, man. He's grown up there, Horner has, so I'm sure there's a lot of people on the inside who you don't even know of that make decisions, especially in big Red Bull headquarters, that have a very different relationship with him than you probably see on the surface. And he makes the money. And until he stops making the money, that's when they're going to make the decision. And that money might stop because of protests, because of sponsors pulling out. That's the only way it's going to stop. If sponsors don't say anything or pull out, or fans don't stop watching or stop rooting for Red Bull, or people aren't showing up to these events, I'm not sure. I'm sure Christian Horner isn't making any public appearances like he would, but time will tell. And once it stops being profitable, that's when they're going to pull out. Once it stops being profitable, that's when Ford's going to pull out. It's all about the money. And I'm not saying these teams are void of values or anything like that. It's just there's no precedent to tell me that people do things by values.
It's a big investment. It's a big investment that Ford's probably making. I'm probably going to take a guess that it's
probably going to be
based on what I've
probably going to be in there.
Oh, it's probably going to be like $1 billion.
Yeah, it's got to be. That number's got to be in there.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be $1 billion investment. So if Ford starts saying they won't be involved with if Christian Horner remains, what do you think? Is Christian Horner worth $1 billion?
Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Is Christian Horner worth $1 billion? Absolutely not. Nobody's worth $1 billion. Almost nobody's worth $1 billion. Maybe there are people worth $1 billion, but very few. Is Christian Horner one of them? Probably not. Christian Horner's success is one thing, but his success came off the backs of two Hall of Fame drivers, as we talk about all the time. Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. I mean, Max Verstappen was great at 16 years old the second they put him in a car, in a Formula One vehicle. He was destined for greatness the day he got in that car when he was racing for, AlphaTauri. So, and then you had Sebastian Vettel, one of the greats of all time, who just if he only raced for money, he'd be racing right now. That's not his vibe. So you end up with two Hall of Famers racing for you. Yes, you put together the best car, but you also had Adrian Newey and a cast of other experts behind you. This always happens. This has always happened. It's revisionist history. What if we took, replace Christian Horner from day one with whoever, with all that talent around him? It's a ton of talent. The guy spent years with Red Bull with a ton of talent around him, and he got results with a ton of talent. Put him on a team with no talent and see what he does. And less money. So, that's the bottom line. But nobody wants to rock the boat unless they have to. And that's when they'll do it, when they have to do it. That's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that.
All right, you want to touch on the big lawsuit here?
Here we go.
Getting the Wayback Machine.
Felipe Massa has filed his lawsuit to get that title.
You knew it was coming. It's been coming for a while.
It's been coming for a while, but it has been officially filed. So in British court. I'll give you my thoughts on it real quick here. I think you should just shut up. It's over. Just deal with it. Do you really want to be the guy? Do you want to be the race car driver who's known as the guy who won his title in a courtroom or on a racetrack? Bottom line.
So this is interesting, and I don't know enough about the Massa case outside of just whatever articles I've read, pretty surface stuff. So I'm not going to dive too deep into it. I would love to get into it as this case moves forward and as we can really look at the papers here. But there has to be a motive besides the title here. And these lawsuits always change a sport when they get to this level. Most people don't want to sue. Most people don't want to go to a courtroom and have a trial. 98% of people that sue or any kind of litigation that goes potentially to a trial never ends up going. So this looks like something he wants to continue to pursue and push. It's obviously very expensive to pursue this litigation, so I don't know where the money's coming from. I'm assuming it's coming from his pocket. But until we really know a lot more about A, where the money's coming from, B, what the true motivation here outside of winning a 2008 title, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that you want a title. There has to be other motivations here. And if and when those motivations come clear, which they will, because it's very shallow and so, there's so many other lawsuits that could happen in sports. Every single baseball team that didn't win the World Series from 95 to 2002 could sue from the steroids. You could have people that sue for Olympic titles. You could have people that sue for all kinds of stuff. So it opens up a vortex. So I don't think any way that Massa can win, even if he has significant proof, which I don't even know where this proof is coming from. Outside of the Singapore Grand Prix from 2008, which is really what this is really all about. We can rehash and relitigate that, and intentional crashes or not, or we can open up that Pandora's box once again.
That Pandora's box, yeah.
But then Lewis Hamilton can sue Max Verstappen, or the FIA, for 2021. A lot of lawsuits can open up in a lot of different places. Just think about all the people that cheated in one way or another, especially performance-enhancing drugs, one way or another over the years. That's a. Do you want to be the judge? Do you want to be the judge that opens that Pandora's box and puts that precedent? Think about it from the litigation side.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be the judge to open up that Pandora's box. So that's the way I would think about it. Again, I need to do a lot more research, so I think you do as well, on this case. And hopefully more information comes out now that it's officially filed. And I have the time and patience to, cut and copy it into an AI and have it sum it up for me. So when I get around to that, hopefully this week, we can talk a little more maybe in the news next week. And speaking of next week, episode number 100, because I screwed up and I thought this was going to be episode number 100, but this is episode number 99. If you join us next next Sunday night, 7 days from today, we're going to be where, Cheese? As the calendar continues.
Australia.
The Australian Grand Prix. We are going down under. Looks like Carlos Sainz will be back in the Ferrari, so no Bearman, which is very disappointing. He definitely got a whole bunch of attention the last couple of weeks, but he'll be on the shelf for a little bit. Opens up a whole Pandora's box of all the questions that have been raised. Of do we need more teams? Is there too much talent in Formula One to not have another 2 teams on the grid, or at least 1 team on the grid? Great questions, and I think Ollie Beer, the Bearman, has really opened up a lot of questions for expansion, which is very interesting. We all know that
Lawson last year. We had Lawson last year too.
I mean, so we all know that this season is going to be tough on the track as far as surprises or anything else. We know it's definitely not going to be a typical competitive year, but there's so much more going on this year. Let's try to keep it on the track. I know a lot of shows are all talking about everything off the track possible and what the lineups are going to look like next year for 2025 or 2026. We're probably not going to bring much of that to you. I know Fernando Alonso is now talking about going to Mercedes and all kinds of other stuff that's that's popping up. We're gonna hold that off till later in the year. Sorry for everyone who's tuning in for 2026 driver lineup potentials. But we're gonna still stick on the track as much as possible. We appreciate everyone for joining us. As we always say, there's 400,000 active podcasts, and you guys chose ours, and we truly appreciate that. So keep on rocking. Check us out on YouTube if you haven't already, in the paddock, or check it out Greeny the Cheese. Type it in on YouTube. Check us out on TikTok until that is seized by the United States government, if TikTok is still available in your area, which it probably isn't. And we'll have to find something else to, maybe we'll have our own social media company, because, they all suck. I think you'd agree with that one. So just listen to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And thank you for Apple Podcasts. They have been absolutely fantastic. We've gotten more downloads per week from Apple Podcasts than we got in months in the past. So thank you for listening, especially those on Apple. But check us out on Spotify or everywhere else that you get your podcast. Listen to every episode for free. There's no paywall. We'll never ask you for money. If someone asks you for money from Greeny and the Cheese, it's a scam. We don't ask you for any money. So keep listening, keep watching, and thank you all for making us top 10% independent podcast in the world. Really, it's all you guys. We just sit here and talk, and you guys join us. We appreciate that, and we will see you in 7 days. Peace.
7 days.